There is a disaster unfolding in Britain, and it seems like under the new Labour government, the United Kingdom is far from united. Of course, I do not condone the violence. I have to say that because it's very easy for people to accuse other people of incitement. Violence is bad no matter which side of politics is committing it. Unsurprisingly, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has clearly stated that the blame lies squarely with only one portion of society, the far right. According to the BBC, Starmer condemns far-right thuggery as unrest continues. Interestingly, over the last few days or so, the top news on the BBC, which is funded by British households, was not about the ongoing protests and violence occurring in their own country, but rather those in Bangladesh. It seems like the BBC are almost condoning what happened in Bangladesh, even though their riots were much more violent than the ongoing British ones. In this article, Sheikh Hasina's final hours as a hated autocrat. They state, on Sunday alone, at least 90 people lost their lives, mostly demonstrators shot by security forces, but also a growing number of police killed by the crowds. Noting they refer to these acts of violence as anti-government protests. For example, here they state, Bangladesh protesters storm Prime Minister's palace. Remembering only a few years ago, on January 6th in Washington DC, it wasn't protesters entering the capital, but rather Congress in turmoil as rioters breach building, violent Trump supporters storm Washington's capital. But the Bangladeshis are heroes for overthrowing their government, even though they killed police? Of course, the ousted sheikh didn't think of them as protesters. Even the BBC quoted her as saying, she said the protesters were not students but terrorists who are out to destabilise the nation. Of course she said that, because she was the one in power. Interestingly, or not, in the UK, Sir Keir Starmer, yes, Mr Starmer was knighted back in 2014, perhaps somewhat ironically for his services to law and criminal justice. In a recent tweet, as well as in a press statement regarding the ongoing troubles in Britain, he stated, "This is not protest, it is pure violence." Again, in the same vein as the ousted Bangladeshi leader, dismissed the protesters as simply far-right thugs. He also emphasised, we will not tolerate attacks on mosques or on Muslim communities, with Elon Musk replying, shouldn't you be concerned about attacks on all communities? It's a fair point. Why is the British PM seemingly siding with only one side? It seems very divisive, and certainly not going to bring British people together. Remembering only a few short years ago, while individuals were tearing down statues in the name of Black Lives Matter or whatever, what were those violent people called again? I better check with the BBC. Oh, that's right. Protesters tear down slave trader monument. They were just innocent protesters. It comes after largely peaceful demonstrations across the weekend saw some clashes with police. Yeah, just some police were battered and bleeding from the largely peaceful protests. And what was Sir Starmer doing? He was taking the knee. We kneel with all those opposing anti-black racism. Black Lives Matter. But of course, now that he's PM and he's lost control of the country, his solution as a knight of law and criminal justice is to arrest as many far-right people as possible. Keir Starmer vows extremists will feel full weight of law. Of course, in this instance, they're not protesters. They're everything but extremists, thugs, and far-right agitators. I guess he thinks by labelling them as such, he can just ignore one major issue. Why are they doing it? Why are they upset? We all know the answer. It's because of the government's immigration policy, right? But of course, he doesn't want to address that issue. The PM thinks it's just easier to tar everyone who disagrees with his immigration policy with the far-right brush. It's lazy politics, and actually it shuts down conversation because people who are honestly concerned with the way things are going in Britain are scared of speaking up and being labelled far-right and racist. Despite the ongoing disaster across Britain, Sir Starmer has still found time to play identity politics. Today, Eleanor Morgan made history as the first woman to become First Minister of Wales. As I said, he doesn't want to talk about immigration and its potential ongoing negative effects on British culture and society. Look, I'm not against immigration when it's done in a controlled manner, but it can't just go on endlessly when there's only finite space to put people. It becomes a question of logistics and mathematics, not racism and xenophobia. For example, think of the massive land mass that is Australia. We have a population of around 27 million people. Comparatively, the UK is tiny. Australia is 32 times bigger. But yet Britain has a population of more than 67 million people crammed into that little area. China, for example, with its 1.4 billion population, has a population density of 145 people per square kilometre, which is a lot less than the UK's 279. Britain is metaphorically packed to the gills. To say that immigration doesn't matter is a lie. We have much more space in Australia, noting that it is a much more arid country, but we still have ongoing immigration issues. Of course, immigration is an issue in the UK. As I said, it's become less a question of cultural differences, but rather, where do you put everybody if you continue along this path of mass immigration? Millions of honest, upstanding British citizens are concerned with immigration. Excess population puts pressure on hospitals, infrastructure, housing. But the PM just seems to think if they just send enough far-right people to prison, everything will be A-OK. But obviously, it won't. That's just treating the symptom, not the cause. Even if all the agitators are jailed, the underlying issues will still be there. But thanks to uncontrolled immigration, just as hospitals are under pressure, prisons are full too. Where are all these so-called far-right people going to be put? It reminds me of 18th century Britain, which was overrun with prisoners. What did the government do? They sent them to Australia. The PM states that the violent demonstrations are not protest, but obviously they are protest. It's just that it's not the sort of protest the government like. Of course, by claiming that it's not a protest, Sir Starmer is trying his hardest to ignore, or not talk about, the underlying immigration issues. It's easy for people to hold up a sign saying, "Refugees welcome in the UK," but it's much harder to run a cohesive country. This won't end well for Labour if they keep ignoring the underlying issues. It's not the far right destroying Britain, it's government policy.